Hello everybody and welcome to another quick Dwarf Fortress tutorial. This is Adventure Mode. We're wandering around as a dwarf. Now, you might be wondering, why is this dwarf in a human city? And also, why is this dwarf claiming a bunch of bears as pets? Well, human cities have tame animals everywhere. If you walk right next to them and right-click, you can click Claim as Pet. This allows them to then follow you and be your friend. And the reason we're collecting all these bears is I'm going to go attack a necromancer tower. Now fast traveling towards the Necromancer Tower itself, and I'm just going to freeze frame here for a second and show you this. This is the actual Necromancer site. The big black building down in the bottom left is the actual tower itself. That's going to be our end goal, but first I would like to gear up and train a little bit. I've already done a bit of scouting here, but what you're going to want to do when you scout into a Necromancer site is you want to find a place that generally just has zombies. Most of these can be outrun by general adventurers, so they're not a huge threat. That being said, Necromancer experiments and intelligent undead can be rather unpredictable, so just make sure when you arrive that you've scouted the area and found a relatively safe-ish Necromancer tower. While you're building your character for an adventure like this, I would recommend bringing some dodge stats and just leveling up your fighter stat. Don't worry too much about those specific weapon stats, as they're not going to benefit you a huge amount, and your bears are going to tank enough damage and be enough cannon fodder that you shouldn't have too big of a problem getting through. I recommend swords or axes and aiming for the neck. It's also worth noting that none of this can be completed unless you have some reading skill. So make sure that your adventurer has some reading skill before you start your adventurer, otherwise you just can't read and will never be able to. So make sure to bring some reading stats. And then the next part is simple. Kill all of them, or at least as many as you can see. Once you feel that you've leveled up enough that the zombies are not an immediate threat anymore, you can then make your way towards the tower itself. You'll be able to see it by checking the fast travel map, and it's quite clear when you run into it. It's generally a giant vertical, kind of squarish round thing on a big patch of square dirt. Once you've fought through all the defenses on the outside, I find that the inside actually generally doesn't have that much in it unless there is necromancer experiments or intelligent undead around. So if you're just wandering in, you're probably relatively safe, but do be aware of traps. And if you feel threatened at any point, turn the hell around and run away, because that is always your best chance of survival in this kind of situation. And then after all of that fun, you then get to do the tedium. You have to find and read every single book in the entire tower. Or at least until you find one that does this. When you see the blue text that says that you have learned some powers, you are now a necromancer. You're immortal, you no longer need to eat or drink, you will not get exhausted while running, and you gain some powers. And you see that? That is the face and the movements of somebody who has been walking around reading books for the last hour and is very happy he finally found his goal. Now you have the ability in the abilities menu, which is the little cross down at the bottom, which allows you to resurrect the dead. Now this can be body parts, this can be whole corpses, and you can resurrect them as either normal undead or intelligent undead. When you become a necromancer, all zombies, regardless of who res them, are going to be neutral to you, unless provoked. So now let's talk about zombies. There are two types of zombies that you can resurrect now. There are regular zombies, which are just purple, and they are dumb, they follow you, they can't talk, they don't really take your items if you give them to them, they don't need clothing, they don't think, they don't do much, and they probably smell horrific. If resurrected, they are not friendly with your animals. They're also not going to be friendly with anybody in the vicinity, regardless of who they are or whether or not they're fighting with you, making them a pretty solid little distraction when you need some defense in the middle of a scrap. They will also follow you for all eternity, which means you can have some pretty powerful friendos following you around. And now the intelligent undead. These are kind of the turquoisey green-blue ones. Now, while theoretically they have some pretty cool powers, you unfortunately cannot convince them to join you, because they can't speak either. Now, because they can't speak, you can't ask them to join. And because you can't ask them to join, they won't follow you. However, you can resurrect the dead companion, and then retire the adventurer, and unretire the adventurer with the companion again, and play as a zombie, if you want. That will give you zombie powers if you complete that. But these both have to be player-created characters or adventurers. So keep that in mind. The last thing I'll mention when it comes to the intelligent undead is because they're neutral to everybody when you resurrect them, you could definitely bring the corpse of a dying friend or dead friend and bring them to a safe location, like let's just say a human town, plop them on the ground and resurrect them, and no one's going to be none the wiser. In fact, they won't even care. They'll probably even try and talk to it, or pet him, or her. This took a lot of gameplay recording on my streams. If you would like to support me directly, I have a new way to do that. I'm no longer prioritizing Patreon. While I still have it, and it's still going to keep running, if you just want to use that side, I've built a website. And this website hosts my blog as well as my weekly newsletter. If you would like to support me, or are currently supporting me on Patreon, I will link some discount codes in the description of this video. They should be active at least until the end of the month I upload this. The difference between this and Patreon is I do get 100% of the money. So there is very, very, very few fees. There's a small bank transfer fee, but that's about it. Together we can slowly push back and build a more sustainable future for channels like mine without the corporate glut standing over top of it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.